Hello. Hello, everybody. I'm here now. Thank you for bearing with me there. Hopefully I didn't lose any of you during that restart. Happy Saturday to everybody. I hope you're all doing very, very well. Thank you for spending some of your Saturday here with me. I'm really thrilled to see so many of you here interested in learning more about Ember and what we've been up to. The team has been working so hard on this project for a long time. It's a little bit surreal for us to kind of have it out in the wild now in Alpha One. Obviously, it's a very limited play test just for Kickstarter backers, but yeah, it's very very crazy that we've reached this milestone, and very satisfying. So yeah, thank you all for your interest. I'm excited to show off what we're up to and get into it. And I don't know how much I'll have time to get to, but I'm planning to stream for about 2 hours and show stuff off and take questions. And yeah, it should be a really good time. So yeah, thank you all for being here. Let's jump straight into it. I'm going to take questions from chat. If you have a question, please throw it in there. Try and preface your question with like an all caps question so that it stands out to my casual eye from other chat that's going on. But I'm going to start with this. This stream is intended to be a little bit of like a walkthrough of sorts, kind of a tutorial, help people understand. For those of you who are testing Ember, help folks kind of understand a little bit of like orientation. For folks that aren't testing Ember, it's a chance to see what it includes and what it's like. Great question from Oregon Pink Rose. It's not possible to get into Alpha 1 because Alpha 1 is exclusive just for our Kickstarter backers, but a little later in the year, there will be an option to upgrade to get into Alpha 2 once our Alpha 2 test starts. But yeah, right now it's just for Kickstarter Alpha tier. Okay, so here I am in Foundry VTT 13.336. So it's our latest V13 build of Foundry VTT. And this is a clean installation. So I'm kind of using this as a demo of like what the process would be like for you if you were, testing Ember in a clean install. So the only thing I did before the stream was I installed the D&D 5th edition game system, which we need for Ember. Ember will eventually support Crucible, but Crucible support isn't implemented yet for Alpha 1. So for Alpha 1 right now, it's D&D 5e. But the Crucible support for Ember is coming and will be added as soon as possible. It's going to be lagging behind D&D by a couple months at least, but it will be coming. And then I've also installed a few modules. I installed Ember, of course, which is now available, and it will only be able to be installed if you have, if you have access to it. But I've installed Ember. I've installed the D&D Player's Handbook because that lets me use the new classes at character creation. It's not required, but I've installed it here. And I've also installed Dice So Nice, which did have a bug for a moment with 13.336, but thanks to JDW's fast action, I believe that has now been fixed. So I've updated that to 5.1.8, and hopefully that should be good. So that's kind of what I did before the stream. So now how would I start playing Ember? How would I start trying it out? Well, it's a module, so it's going to be added into a game world. So I'll start by making a new game world. I'll call it like Ember Alpha One Stream, and using the D&D 5th edition system, which again, for now, it's the only option that Ember supports. I'm going to jump into this world. Now, if I was really setting this up, I might take some time to set up like other player accounts, but I'm not going to do that for this stream. I just need the GM account only. All right, so I'm here in a new world. Blank screen. I've got no content yet. It's an empty blank canvas for me to do whatever I need to do. I'm going to start by enabling the Ember module. So this is the first thing you'll need to do in your new world. Is I could enable all three, but I'll enable the other two in just a minute, just to avoid confusing anyone. So I'm just going to enable Ember, and that once the Ember module is enabled, I see this little prompt on the screen like, oh, the Ember module's activated, but it's not yet imported, so we need to import the Ember adventure. So we've got here the adventure importer for Ember Alpha One, and we see it includes a bunch of stuff. I'll be getting into details about like what does it actually include in just a minute. But there's also some options here. I'll click these just because you can customize world detail, which will make your login screen a little bit like Ember themed if you want. Preserve world state doesn't matter whether I click it on or off right now. But what that will do is if you subsequently re-import the adventure, which you will need to do when we post updates to the alpha build, preserving world state runs some additional workflows that attempt to persist some data across re-importing the adventure. So things like where is your party on the region map, some aspects of game state, some aspects of documents that might otherwise get wiped out when you re-import the adventure. You'll want to use preserve world state if you're like in the middle of a game and you don't want it to get, you know, reset back to sort of factory defaults. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and import, and it's going to do its work. It's got a bunch of stuff to bring in. And once I've imported the adventure, I get the Game Master's Guide that has popped up for me, and it's automatically taken me here to one of our beautiful Ember vistas, the Broken Tower, which is a scene that we use very much like a sort of landing page for Ember. I think right now you'll probably be hearing some music or environmental audio. I'm gonna take this moment to kind of calibrate volume a bit, so I'll bring it up a little bit, and I don't want it to be too loud. I don't want it to make it hard to hear me, but I can adjust volume from here in-game or in OBS, so just let me know in chat if this level sounds pretty good to you or if you'd like more or less. Too loud now. Okay. Let's take it down a bit. But not all the way down to where it was before. People are saying beautiful, perfect, good. Hopefully that continues to be the case. All right. So we've just imported Ember. There's a few things that you'll notice. If anything, my voice is low. Let me see. I can shift the mic up just a little bit, but yeah. Hopefully that helps it a little bit. Okay, where was I? So yeah, we've just imported Ember. So we have the Game Master's Guide that's just popped up here. But you're also seeing some aspects of the new V13 UI. So if you're used to using an older version of Foundry, this element at the top center is Ember specific, but everything else that you're seeing is the new Foundry V13 UI. It's a little bit more minimal. It organizes itself in a slightly different way. It's designed to kind of fade in when you need it and otherwise be more unobtrusive. And so that's something that we really think complements Ember really nicely, where it's a very visual experience. Keeping the interface a little bit more out of the way is welcome. So that's hopefully a V13 improvement that many of you are already enjoying. So the Game Master's Guide that has popped up, let me talk a little bit about the starting point. And this is just for alpha. This text is, it's not fully edited. It's absolutely not final. Everything you're seeing here is very much in an alpha state. Everything is work in progress. Nothing is done. So please do be mindful of that. But, you know, hopefully you're understanding of what we mean when we're talking about our first alpha test. It is still very early in the scheme of things for us. So what did we get imported in the journal sidebar under the Ember folder? I'll go through this line by line in a moment, but the Game Master's Guide and the Player's Guide are both here. They both share this same Welcome to Ember screen, but the Game Master Guide has a few pages that are different. Welcome to Alpha One, a little bit of information about ground rules, what to expect, providing feedback, as well as a sort of main quest overview of what the game narrative is about, different pages of things the Game Master needs to know about. It is kind of assumed that the Game Master knowledge here is a little bit of like a superset of player knowledge, so it is expected that the Game Master would review information in the Player's Guide as well. The Game Master needs to know what the players know as well. So yeah, there's these two guides that you can review for kind of getting started and familiarizing yourself with the setting and its materials. Yeah, the Game Master's Guide pops up automatically, but I'm not going to review like every page in this guide one at a time, but I will kind of highlight some pages at the bottom. System requirements, you need Foundry VTT V13336 or greater, D&D 4.3, ideally this should say 4.3.1 or greater. It's pretty basic stuff other than that though. And then, of course, the whole team that has worked to make this happen. I really encourage any of you who are playing or running or just exploring Alpha 1 to take a look at the credits page and at least, mentally give some claps to the amazing, give some plaudits to the amazing team of folks that have been working very hard to make Ember happen. All right. So where are we? We've just landed in Ember, and this is one of our vistas that we use as a landing page. So as you can see, one of the very awesome things about vistas is that we have some ability to look around. Just as you would right-click and pan to move the map, if it were like a dungeon map or something, you can do the same thing in vistas, and this lets you kind of look around the scene, and as you can see, things will sort of parallax in a way that gives, that sort of helps sell the sense of illusion and depth of the environment, and it's all integrated with a day-night cycle. So if I go back in time, here's like dusk, and then rewinding more, here's daylight, and so there's a seamless sort of day-night cycle in this scene as well that's linked to the Ember calendar. I mentioned that this UI element at the top of the screen is one that is Ember specific. This is our in-world calendar that tracks times, years, seasons, weather, lunar positions, and much more. And so yeah, as time advances, all of the areas in the Ember game world are all synchronized to that, so they all have their own day-night and weather cycles and cosmological cycles that are attuned and linked to the game state that you're seeing. That's something that's true, throughout all facets of Ember, not just this scene. Yes, okay. So let's talk about how would you actually start the game. How would you actually start playing Ember? This is covered a bit in the Game Master's Guide. There's a page on starting the game that talks you through the process, and so one of the first steps of playing the game would of course be character creation. Now, as a GM, you might look ahead and preview all of the quests or narrative or read about the setting or whatnot, but as far as actually playing goes, you're going to need some players, you're going to need some player characters. So let's talk about character creation. The way that character creation works in Ember, it is of course just for 5th edition right now. Crucible support is coming. But when you create a actor, a player character specifically, so we'll do like party member 1. When you create a player character, it automatically goes into Ember's character creation UI. This is a bespoke, sort of guided experience towards creating player characters in Ember. And it has several steps that you're going to walk through for the player as far as creating your character. The first one is ancestry. Ember has excuse me, Ember has 16 unique ancestries that are setting specific. So instead of playing a Goliath or a Tiefling, as you would in an ordinary sort of 5th edition game in Forgotten Realms, our ancestries in Ember are unique. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but I will just kind of click through them, and you can see, you can get a sense of their general sort of vibes. All of these ancestries are in the setting compendium with lots of information that you can read about each of them, and they each have their own mechanical traits, their own mechanical features. Just as a official D&D ancestry would provide certain features, our ancestries also provide certain features that are aligned with the lore of that ancestry and what they do and how they work. So I think for this character, I'll make a Thornling because they're amazing. And let's be a Thornling monk. So in the second step, I'm choosing my character class. Now, I'm actually going to stop character creation right here and show you something. So I didn't enable any modules except for the Ember module at this time. And so what happens there is when I'm choosing character classes, these are then going to be the, for now, 2014 SRD character classes, because all I have installed right now is the base D&D 5e system, so that's all I have access to in terms of classes. But suppose I want to play with the new 2024 classes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bail out of character creation. I'm going to go over to Manage Modules. I'll activate the Player's Handbook. And a question from Team is better. Yes, player characters will see this character creation screen. So players will go through this process themselves of creating their own character in your game. Okay, so I've enabled the PHB module. If I go back into character creation now, chose Thornling. So now these classes that we're getting, these are now the 2024 classes. So if you notice, like, Cleric is getting their Divine Order at level 1 instead of, you know, the prior way that they would progress. So if you have the new PHB installed, by default, these classes will be drawn from that PHB, and you'll be getting those class features, those spells, etc. Same with TCOE. If you have Tasha's installed, then Artificer will be available here in the list, and the optional Tasha's features are available as options for you to take. So let's make a Thornling monk. We'll go some dexterity, some constitution, some wisdom. That looks good. Now we get to culture. We've got 8 playable cultures at this time in Ember. There are many more than 8 prominent cultures within the world, but these 8 are the ones that are enabled for player characters at the moment. We've got Arcturian, which is one of the home cultures for the area of the world where Ember takes place. So is Ordani, also is one of the kind of home cultures, the part of the world that you'll be exploring in our game. You'll encounter lots of Arcturians and lots of Ordani. The other 6 cultures are from more distant lands, but they're still geographically close enough that it's very plausible that characters from these cultures would appear in this part of the world. So we have Cassilian, which is a very sort of seafaring-centric trade republic. Kithel, which is a sort of more secluded community that's very lunar attuned, very sort of moon-based, with traditions and cultural structure that emphasizes nighttime living, so to speak. Lumek, a sort of warlike culture that is thrust in the midst of a terrible conflict with undeath at their borders, and so they're kind of a people that are embroiled in a very long war against the undead, and it affects a lot of aspects of their culture. Oaken, a kind of survivalist culture from a very dangerous continent to the north. It's a very sort of snowy place, fjords and mountains and tundra and forests. Ordani I already mentioned. Tan is an imperial culture far to the west of our playable space. They are actually ruled by a dragon, which is a very unique thing, and not just a dragon, but, there's more lore there for you to explore, which I won't get into in the depths of it now, but the Tan culture is really very interesting. And then the Weird culture is from a subcontinent just to the south of our playable space, and they're kind of very tactically capable warriors and sort of hardened survivalists and tellers of folklore and tellers of tales, with many feuding bastions of their civilization. Their culture is very sort of scattered and fragmented into these sort of feuding bastions that are always infighting, or but they are kind of still a cohesive culture. But the Weird culture is very interesting. So anyways, for this culture, for this character, I'll be a Arcturian Thornling. Paths. Now, one of the things you're noticing if you're used to playing 5e is that there isn't just like background. So we've kind of expanded on, in Ember, we've expanded on the 5th edition premise of background with a 3-part process where our backgrounds are dynamically composed of a culture, a path, and an attunement. So culture was the first part of your background in Ember. Path is the second part, which reflects kind of your lived experiences before the start of the game. And there's 22 of these paths that give you some skills, proficiencies, and specifically like knowledge areas that your character is familiar with, and those come up in gameplay throughout the game. They also give you these sort of background seeds of lore ideas that would give you a jump start into your character in ways that will come up in the Ember game. So if you're not like an expert on our game or our setting, but you like the idea of Night Watch, well, this background path is going to give you some sort of role-playing or backstory ideas that you can change or adapt or tweak or adjust. It's obviously your character and your story, but these are all sort of backstory seeds that will put your character in a position to like really have a close relationship to the lore and the narrative of Ember as a setting. All right, lastly, attunement. Every character in Ember has an attunement with a cosmological force. There are the 6 elemental moons: Akon, Aura, Korra, Maus, Orbis, and Rajan. There is also the forces of the heart of Ember itself, or the terrible abyss beyond. So all 8 of those are current attunement options for your character, and your attunement will show up in gameplay. There's certain things that will be checks or narrative moments where if you have a particular attunement, something happens for you but not for other members of the party. I'll go with Korra attunement for my Thornling Arcturian monk. It seems like a good choice. And last but certainly not least, the token step of creation is so fun, because now we get to customize the visual appearance of our Thornling, which is so fun and so satisfying a thing to do. I can, of course, randomize and get, all kinds of beautiful, fun little Thornling options just at the click of a button, or I can painstakingly go through and customize one by one every piece of anatomy and every piece of equipment in order to get my perfect adventure. I actually really like this randomization one. I just think I want maybe some sort of bright teal eyes to like match the color of these leaves. So I think maybe something like this. I won't customize it further, but I think going a little green on the eyes here I like the idea of. So yeah, I'll choose this as my character appearance, and I can of course come back and change this at any point later. So if I want to change my style or get new equipment or something later in the game, I can always customize this more later. So I have some unspent scores. Yeah, I want to boost my dexterity and my wisdom as a monk. So I'm going to then complete creation. I do need to make a few final choices. So like which skills I want my proficiencies in. I get a tool proficiency to choose, and I get another 2 more skills. I like stealth and arcana. Another tool proficiency. Okay, so there I've finished character creation, and I've got my Thornling Party Member 1 character sheet. So what you would want to do as the game master at this point is as soon as your players have make a folder here. As soon as your players have made their characters, you're going to want to add those to the party. Now D&D is going to be getting a beautiful new party sheet soon. I actually saw a preview of it from Kim during one of our Free Project Friday at the end of January. So I don't want to put pressure on Kim by promising that, but yeah, the D&D party sheet is going to get a beautiful upgrade sometime soon. I'm looking forward to that, and we're going to do some Ember specific things with it once that is available. But yes, adding the player characters to the party is going to be an important step to take to make sure that things work properly. So now I'm just going to do 1 player character. I'm not going to create like a whole party of 4, but of course you would have as many people in your party as you would want. Ember is designed for a party of 4 players, but it will work pretty well with 3. It will work pretty well with 5. If you have less than 3 characters in the party or more than 5 characters in the party, there would be some additional work that would kind of fall to you as the game master to sort of further balance the content, because I think outside of that range you're going to probably have too much of a challenge or too little of a challenge, but between 3 and 5 should be pretty good without any adjustments. Yeah, so how does the game actually start then? We've been on this very nice landing page, but what about the actual like beginning of play? Before I get there, I'm just going to give a quick overview of the UI elements at the top of the screen. So the calendar, the far left and far right allow me as the GM to change time, so I can, advance or rewind by an hour, a minute, 30 minutes, a day, 7 days. So yeah, I can easily control the passage of time. Then other buttons at the top. We have the world map, which is, of course, work in progress. It's not final, but we have this wonderful illustration of the entire world of Ember, all of its continents, all of its cities, its cultures, its locations. The game that we are playing in Ember takes place in the Arctis Plateau in a space that is roughly about this red square in size. So this is where our game takes place, but there is a much broader world out there that is open to be tapped into in terms of the lore, the setting, the world building. It's really amazing. Of course, you can see like the mountains and things. Like, this isn't final art yet. I can't wait to see what the final art will look like. Kaora has done a superlative job just to get it to this point, but it's going to be even more spectacular by the time it's done. So absolutely love our world map, so proud of it, and it's kind of a wonderful reference to have available whenever you need to look at, like, oh, where are this Lumek culture or something, like where is this again? The map is a wonderful resource to help you understand how far away things are or things like that. The world map isn't used for gameplay. It's too large a scale to be practically used for any gameplay purpose, so it's just here as a world-building reference and tool for you to know where certain things are. All right, then next up on the top bar, we have the Cosmos map, which is another very beautiful, very eye-catching feature. So the Cosmos map is a living model and representation of Ember's cosmology. So one interesting thing about Ember as a setting is everything takes place within the same singular space. There are no alternative planes of existence. There's no sort of parallel dimensions. So everything in the Ember cosmology is entirely here. And we can reference, of course, the Cosmos article in the setting compendium for information about everything that's depicted on this screen: the elemental moons, the inner realms, Ember itself, which is the landmass in the center here, Lantier, the sun, the abyss beyond. And this is, I mentioned, this is a living model. And so, of course, as time progresses in the world, I'll just fast forward 2 weeks. And as we fast forward 2 weeks, we see the visual, simulation, the representation of the cosmology adapt. We see as the inner realms rotate around, the season is changing. You see in the calendar bar, let's go 2 more weeks. You see like the season is evolving, like we're into steading now as a new season, as Luxarum, the inner realm, kind of gains in prominence. This is bringing us into our sort of summer season in world. The lunar positions of moons is all evolving as they orbit around, and we see like here Maius is coming into phase as it reaches its zenith. So we would have like a lunar zenith event that happens when one of the moons reaches a point of prominence. So all of the kind of cosmological integration of these things is built into this reference. So at any point in the game, you or your players can pop over to the Cosmos map and you can kind of have that fun visualization of like what's in the night sky right now for where we are in our timeline. I'm going to skip over the region map for a second because that's actually where we're going in order to start the game. I will rewind back to the beginning of time because that's where we should be for the start of the narrative. So you get to see this go very fast, spinny colors in reverse. Epilepsy warning, sorry. Yeah, and then other things on the calendar UI up top, you can collapse it or expand it if you want a more minimal or expanded view. The expanded view is just a fun little visualization for reference whenever you're not on the Cosmos screen itself, so you can see like which moons are active or what's the day-night cycle. And we've got a convenient link to the party sheet. Of course, like I said, this is going to be more beautiful in the future, but the party sheet is going to be like a very important reference used throughout for your group's adventure. And then last but certainly not least, we have the Codex, which is our tome of knowledge, our journal, our quest log, that for your players tracks all of their accomplishments, the knowledge that they've gained, their discoveries, and their objectives. So right now the Codex is sort of empty. However, you will... Pardon me, needs a sip. My throat is getting a little hoarse. You will see the Codex be populated as you continue exploring and progressing the game, and I'll show more about what that looks like in a minute. But we don't have anything in our journal yet. We don't have anything in our quest log yet. I'll come back here in a minute. We do, as the GM, see a lot of things that can be discovered here. Locations, creatures, characters. I'll come back to this a little bit later after we've encountered some things, so I can show you what it's like to have content show up here. But the many characters, the many creatures that you can encounter within the game, they're all discoverable here in the Codex. So you can have all of this information at the tips of your fingertips about all of these places, creatures, characters, and events. All right. Then the last thing on the bar at the top is the region map itself. So this is where I'm going to go in order to actually start the game. So if I go and activate the region map, I'm just viewing it right now, but if I were to activate it, then the game will begin. Now, it's not activated yet, I'm just looking at it as a GM, but we have this beautiful region of the Arctis Plateau. It's nighttime right now, so it's a little bit hard to see, but it will be daytime in a bit, and I'll show you again. The beautiful Arctis Plateau, which we call our mega region, it is the part that's available in alpha right now, is the part you can see here. Now, we've sort of masked out things beyond the borders of the region. I'll just rewind to let it be daytime for a minute. We've masked out some things beyond the borders of the region in order to preserve some mystery and to shelter ourselves from having to show some parts of the world that haven't been beautifully illustrated yet. We have still a lot of work yet to do, but this is a truly enormous region, and this is only a part of it. So the entire world map of Ember is like, the entire playable region map of Ember is like this, and so you can see that this part of the region is a significant portion, but it is not by any means the whole thing. So there's many, many hexes out there beyond the boundaries of this area to discover and to explore. Each hex of the region map represents 1 mile of distance, and therefore each hex is approximately a square mile of space, a little bit less than that technically. And yeah, I'll show some other features of the region map. We have a terrain overlay that the Game Master can see that will show me all of the different biomes of the world. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and activate this scene now. When I activate the scene, and it should be, the starting time should be in the evening, so I'll go back there. It's going to prompt me with the first event of the game. So activating this scene is kind of, at least for the time being, how you start Ember. There will be a kind of slightly different, like, start the game button in the future that has a more sort of guided tutorial experience, but for now, activating the mega region for the first time will actually start the game. So what happens as a result of that is our first gameplay event pops up, and this is for the place where the characters start at the beginning of the adventure. Now I'm going to refresh real quick because there is a small bug, #alpha. We are very early in development. There are still some bugs. The music that comes out of the character creation UI sometimes doesn't end properly, and so I was having like the wrong soundscape playing at this moment. So I'll refresh so I get the correct soundscape. This event pops up at the bottom of the screen in this UI element, and this is what it looks like for a GM whenever a gameplay event occurs and is suggested. Now this is a main quest event, so it's kind of required, but for the most part these quest events are ones that you could agree to do, or you could decline, or you could ask, like, is there some other event that can happen right now instead? In this case, there isn't any other event. This is the first main quest of the game, beginning of Chapter 1, so you kind of have to do this one if you really want to play the Ember story. As you can see, this first event, the Sheltered Campsite, is the very beginning of this quest, and the quest itself has several sort of branching points, different ways that it could go, choices, consequences. It's a really powerful narrative engine that Ember has that is able to tell these sprawling and kind of open world and non-linear stories that take us all over our region and have all sorts of things happen. So the anatomy of this event is when it's suggested to the Game Master, the GM can quickly review the contents of the event. Each event has a Game Master summary at the top, which we make it easy for the GM to know, like, what's this event about? Do I want to do it? Do I want to not do it? And if you're going to do the event, then the place you start as the Game Master is with this evocative read aloud. And so every event begins with a provided block of narrative text that the game master is given to draw players in and excite them and entice them with a hook. And so I'm not gonna read it in full. If you want to, you can see this event, this quest in the Chapter 1 playthrough that we did with our friends at the Glass Cannon Network at GCN. Obviously, Ember has improved and evolved and grown since we recorded that, so some things are now different than they were in that playthrough, but the bones of the Winding Trail quest is still the same as it was in that recording that we did during Kickstarter. So when I click Begin Event as the GM, it's going to take us into our first scene of the campaign. And this is a beautiful Vista scene of the sheltered campsite where the game begins. So you're here at the Shard of Akon, camping in the Forest of Stone with Agraband and Anchorist and Sin and Lila and Clipper and the rest of the Strayhearth caravan. You, the player characters, are in this scene, and you're able to visualize and imagine yourself in this location, in the world. You're able to look around, you know, within limitation. You're able to look around and get a feel for the place. You're able to interact with the characters. So Agraband can approach you, you know, move closer to the camera and have a conversation with the players, and then step back and go about their business and do something else, you know, back here. All of these characters can move about and interact with the scene. It's kind of fully depth rendered, so there is kind of a 2.5D or a depth to these Vista scenes that allows all these characters to move around them and to interact. You know, Clipper can go over here to this tent in the back and be kind of off camera for a while, or can come forward and join the party by the fire. Not in the fire, Clipper, don't do that. So the Vista scenes are very powerful in the sort of theater of the screen storytelling that you get with all of these amazing character portraits that you can have to kind of depict different character interactions of your friends, your allies, your adversaries in some cases. And yeah, so we're really, really proud of the Vista system and the way that it gives you as the players and as the GM a kind of window into the world to aid your imagination of Ember and what you're experiencing. Ember does not, at this time, provide portrait artwork for your character, so, you know, it's not in scope, it's not planned as something we're going to do, but if you do have your own character artwork, you can place your own character into this scene very easily. So imagine the player character that I made had their own portrait artwork. Now this is just a top-down token, so it doesn't really work well. But you can imagine if this character had portrait artwork, we can easily put them into the scene, and they'll be able to, you know, participate in the Vista as well. All right, so in terms of the gameplay for the event, for the Game Master, the event journal has so much amazing detail about the characters you're meeting, what they're telling you, the social interactions you could have with that character, what sort of skill checks or rolls can you make to learn additional information. If you have a certain attunement, like Maus or Orbis, now that our character doesn't, and so this shows up as like an X, but you can imagine all 4 party members here, and it would easily, as the GM, tell you like which of the characters in the party has that particular attunement, and therefore those characters would have a certain thing happen or have a certain piece of knowledge that they know that others don't know. And that's true for cultures, it's true for knowledges, ancestries. There's all kinds of places throughout the game where the various facets of your character's background will show up and cause your character to have experiences that other characters in the party don't have. So there's this really deep connection between the lore and between your character's background and the gameplay experience that you'll have throughout Ember. And the layout of these events is designed to just be so easy for the Game Master to run. All of the information is at your fingertips. We like to sort of say Ember is sort of a zero prep game. Now, obviously, like, if as a game master you prepare, you will do a better job as a game master. It's like, it's unavoidable that there is value in preparation, but we've designed Ember in a way that preparation is not required. All of the artwork, all of the music, all of the maps, all of the lore, all of the setting, all of the gameplay events, it's all provided for you. There's nothing that you need to bring in that you don't already have. And so as a GM, you really can just like sit down with your friends and start playing Ember and not have to, you know, spend your Saturday preparing for your Sunday game. That's really important to us. So imagine that we've played out this event and we now mark the event as complete by clicking the little button at the bottom. Now, as part of completing this event, we're actually resting overnight. So we're spending the night at this campsite, and then the rest of the game would proceed in the morning. So I'm going to go ahead and advance time through the night. It's thankfully uneventful. And in the morning, we'll say at about 8 a.m., the caravan is going to get going and hit the road. So now if we look quickly into our journal, we see that we've got the first record of plot that has happened in the Winding Trail quest. We have a little record that this event happened. We also, if we wanted as the GM, suppose you met the characters that you're traveling with, which you would have done during this event. The GM could mark all of these characters as discovered, and so then the players would have at their fingertips access to this information. Now, some things are GM only, so like the alignment, for example, of a character or their profession is GM only information, but this is of course the GM view that I'm seeing here. You get a pronunciation. You can have quick access to the character's full, you know, biography and stat block and inventory. Everything's integrated here. But importantly, the players get all of this information, so they can remember, oh, who's that anchorist guy again that we met back at the beginning of the game? It's kind of helpful, like automatic note-taking of sorts, and you get to, of course, see then at any time you get to see our beautiful artwork from our team of talented artists. You get to enjoy that as well. Yeah, that's how, like, as gameplay happens, information then shows up in the codex. Now, at the beginning of the game, the caravan is headed towards Helkes. Now, for the game master, you know where Helkes is. It is all the way over here in this particular hex at the boundary between the Forest of Stone and the Golden Paths beyond. So we have pins on the map, so if you like, you can look at the map pins to see, like, okay, here's Helkes, here's everything about the town. We're heading there. We haven't reached it yet. Players don't know exactly where that is yet, because they would only be seeing the fog of war of what you've discovered as you go. So as the caravan explores, and at first, for the players, this is a little bit of like you're passengers, you're along for the ride. The players are not driving the caravan for this first part of the prologue, so to speak. The game master, or perhaps later the game engine itself, is sort of in control of driving the Strayhearth caravan. But the players will get their agency to explore the world on their own soon. So yes, so the caravan moves throughout the world. We did encounter a new biome, by the way, so in our codex, the Verdant Paths biome is now discovered. So that was a thing that happened. Here we have an example of a location discovery. So the caravan is going to move towards this next hex, which contains this location, the Giant's Moonstone. And when the caravan moves into that hex, we have a discovery, a location discovery. So you see at the bottom of the screen, there's this pop-up like, oh, you've discovered the Giant's Moonstone. There's a little piece of art that gets revealed on the region map to kind of commemorate the location. There's some read-aloud text that, as the game master, you can narrate to describe to your players what they're seeing. And then at this location, there's actually also a gameplay event that occurs. So in addition to just discovering the location, there's a plot beat that happens here. And so as the GM, I would be playing out this event. I'll click Begin Event. It's going to take us into a scene. Here's another vista where we can explore this location, this moonstone within the world. There's a lot of great lore that can be discovered in this event, and you can of course interact with all of the characters in the caravan. You can get to know them better, you know, spend some time talking with Anchorist about, you know, what are you up to anyways, what's your deal, you know, learn from Clipper about what they're doing, or you know, any of these characters in the caravan. These events are a chance for you to get to know your companion NPCs better. In particular, these NPCs, minor spoilers. Obviously, this whole thing is like minor spoilers. Hopefully, I don't need to keep saying that, but you know, there's some minor spoilers here. This group of characters is going to be with you for a while. So some of these characters that you're meeting here early on are going to be like longtime companions that you'll be interacting with throughout the rest of the game. So these first events are just, you know, early breadcrumbs that give you a chance to start getting to know them a bit more. We'll mark this event as complete, but again, you see that there's throughout the event so much that you can do as the GM, like so much to dig into. Even little just kind of like exploration plot beat events like this one are packed with gameplay goodness. So we'll mark this event as complete. If we go back to the quest and we look at the flowchart, we can also see that on the flowchart we can see which events have completed. So we know as the GM, like, what is it that we've done? What is it that's coming up next? There's also a overlay view on the canvas itself. So I can toggle on a visual legend for this quest that will show me where in the world it is, you know, taking me. So for the GM, this is just for the GM, not for players, but the GM gets to see, like, where is it that this quest is going to go in the world as it kind of branches out or takes the party to different locations. So you can look ahead, and you as the GM can kind of anticipate or plan, like, what's coming up next, so that I'm not caught entirely by surprise. All right, so let's continue on. The caravan is continuing on its path through the verdant paths. We're heading up, winding our way through this kind of circuitous environment as we're on the trail towards Helkas, our destination. And it is now getting into the evening, and so we're in need of finding a campsite. Luckily, though, Agraband, our caravan leader, knows just where to go. There is a abandoned sort of homestead here in the Forest of Stone that Agraband is leading the caravan towards, a way stop for the evening. And so we advance one more hex and we discover this outpost. We discover the location. We begin the event that occurs here. The purpose of this event is kind of to introduce the characters, the players, to a bit more of the cosmology of Ember. So this is kind of like you're camping at nighttime campfire and you're stargazing at the skies overhead and you're talking with the other companions. So this event, kind of the purpose of this event is really to like introduce the cosmos map to players and to, you know, familiarize them with like the basic principles of Ember's cosmology if they haven't already read about that. So having completed this event, we would return to the region map and of course advance time by 8 hours. I can also do that on the party sheet. There's a long rest button that when I take a long rest for the party, it will automatically advance that amount of time. Although we're gonna spend a few more hours because we don't need to get going at 4 in the morning. But suppose it is, 7 a.m. the next day and the caravan is ready to go again. We hit the trail. And this is sort of the end of the tutorial where the party is the players are sort of along for the ride. And a few more hexes from here, we're going to hit an event as Agraband is, and again, this is the last time I'll say it, but I just trust that everyone knows that there's some little spoilers here in this stream, so hopefully that doesn't bother you. It's just the beginning of Chapter 1, though. Nothing earth-shattering. So there's an unfortunate turn of events here that I won't go through the whole details of the event, but basically your passage through the Forest of Stone gets blocked. And this is a great example of an event outcome and some of the really fun interactive ways that event outcomes can affect the visual style and presentation of the game. So if we look at the quest flowchart, we see that this particular event contains a tracked outcome. These yellow boxes are like specific outcomes that are attached to events that might or might not happen, and they're things that the GM can track in terms of like, did this occur? And those outcomes feed into our event engine and our narrative structure in ways that like other downstream events can depend on certain outcomes happening or not happening. Certain outcomes are mutually exclusive choices, like you can do A, B, or C, but not all of them. So there's so many tools in the event engine and in the flowchart structure of these quests for controlling like choice and consequence moments. So in this particular event that we're in right now, one of the outcomes is like this this spire on the region map here. The narrative beat is that it collapses dramatically and blocks your passage. And so of course, like in a non-Ember game, even if you had a map like this, the GM might, you know, sort of scribble and be like, okay, yeah, there's, you know, here, you can imagine it's down now, it's not here anymore. And that would be good. You can that's good. That's not bad. But Ember can do a lot of fun things beyond that. So for the GM, when we check off the Spire collapsed outcome, we get a really fun moment that is synchronized across all of the players. So all players are going to experience this kind of shaking screen, the sound of the collapsing rock. Visually, the map changes, and you can no longer proceed as the path in front of you has become fully blocked. And so just those little like stylistic flourishes that really are designed to kind of like draw players in and make them feel like they're just really imagining and immersing themselves in the world. In terms of like what this means mechanically, if we look back at our terrain overlay, in the terrain overlay, and in fact there's actually a little bug right now that's preventing, there should be a legend here. One of our known Alpha One bugs is that something is stopping this legend from displaying. Sorry, Alpha One testers, I know it's not that helpful without the legend, but there is actually a legend here that tells you like what all of the biomes are and stuff. So yeah, ruined. But anyways, the hexes with this like crosshatch through them are impassable. These hexes with green in them, now we also have an event HUD, so we can use the hex HUD to inspect any one particular hex at a time and get information about that hex, which is really great. So like we know that this hex that we're in right now is in the Verdant Paths biome, and we conveniently link from the hex HUD to the Gazetteer information about this biome. We also know that this hex is normal terrain. Probably this hex should be difficult terrain, to be honest. Maybe we might change that. We also know if there's a vista or an area map that's suitable to use to depict this location. Those are conveniently linked here as well. Each hex has an ID, a key that identifies it. Those can be useful when you're talking to your party or to the GM, like, I'm talking about this specific hex. Which one? Well, you can use the number to refer to it. The other thing I wanted to highlight here about the terrain overlay is that the black edges, the black lines are, of course, like impassable edges. So we noticed that this became an impassable edge. So the caravan, we can't move this way anymore. And we actually can see how the pathfinding algorithm would, as the GM, try and get you there if you did, in fact, need to go that way. We do have pathfinding in the game, so if we try and go somewhere where we can't go, it'll tell you, oh, like, that's impossible. There's no way you can get there right now. But if you try and go somewhere that is possible, it's just, you know, far away, the Pathfinder for the GM will show you the, you know, the best way to get there, and that's the route that your token will follow, the party would follow if you were to make that journey. But we can't go this way, we'd have to go around. And if I were to like undo the outcome, I can uncheck it, rewind time. Our spire has in fact not collapsed yet. We can see that that path is open, so like I could make that move until the spire collapses, at which point I can no longer make that move. It's now impassable. All right, so suppose we finish this event. Once we've finished this event, that kind of marks the conclusion of Ember's sort of prologue or tutorial of sorts. Once I mark this event as done, the party token is added to the region map. And so now the players have agency to pursue their own direction. They could either stay here and help the caravan to clear the rubble, although that's kind of the non-glorious option. The more glorious option is the call to adventure is for you to go and find an alternative path around so that the caravan can make its way through to Helkas. So we're going to do that, and as the party token now, I'm moving away, and we see that there's still now both caravans on the map. So there's the caravan you departed, and then there's your party token, which as the players, they would be able to control and to move the party token themselves. All right, moving on, we encounter our first combat encounter of the game, sickly drakelings. And so this is going to be the first area map that shows up in Ember. I'm really proud of our area maps. We have so many wonderful ones. I'll show you a little bit more of those in a minute. But as we begin this event, it takes us into an area, and now we are at kind of token level. Oh, you know what? I know something that okay, no, my party member did spawn in here. I forgot that I only have one party member at the moment. I was like, where's the rest of them? I only have one party member at the moment. We're playing this game solo mode for maximum challenge. Achievement solo completion 100% would be our like pinnacle Steam achievement for Ember. But yeah, so you've spawned into this area map. There's a dramatic moment where you're jumped by some baddies, and of course the combat tracker was automatically populated for this event. We try and take away as much of the bookkeeping as possible. So like all these creatures were automatically spawned, they were added to the combat tracker. You're able to just kind of go straight in and roll initiative. You see that we get grouped combatants, which is a very exciting new feature, sort of almost brand new, that is still getting a little bit of polish and workshopping, but it's a really exciting D&D addition that is coming in. I don't actually know why this one wasn't added to the group, but it's kind of a new enough feature that we're sort of still figuring out. I think it's because they share the same initiative, actually. Anyways, yeah, so we would go into this combat encounter. One thing that's really fun, I'm going to disable the turn marker. That's a new V13 feature, and Ember will eventually have its own beautiful, maybe Ember-specific turn marker, but we haven't made it yet, so that's kind of a placeholder. One of the things that's really exciting is that combat music is handled automatically, so you're hearing in the background that like the combat music started automatically as soon as I began the combat encounter. I'll turn it down a little bit. I guess it's probably a little bit loud for stream, but I didn't, as the GM, have to manage that. The combat music kind of kicked in on its own, and so that's a nice feature that just kind of one of the many things that Ember does that helps you as the GM just enjoy playing and not having to micromanage too many things at the same time. Another really fun thing here in these area maps, of course, These area maps are, well, firstly, they're quite visually lovely, but they have all these kind of stylistic flourishes, you know, particles or special effects, or you see how the trees are like swaying gently in the wind. There's these like seed bulb pods that if you like shoot them or hit them with something, they'll like explode in this like poison cloud effect that you can either run into trouble with, or you can use them to your advantage in combat if you like blow them up on someone else. That's pretty cool. I'll just reset it and do it again for effect. And there's other just kind of flourishes. All of these scenes are kind of 2.5D, so you can see like I go under the bridge here, or if I climbed up to 20 feet, then I'm up on top. So we have like elevation as a deeply integrated part of the gameplay loop, so handling sort of 3D, 2.5D elevation and token movement. It also works really well with the new V13 ruler, so for example, this token at 20, if I were to climb down to ground level, I can use the mouse wheel to like, I'm going to move 20 feet, but I'm also going to move down, and it animates and changes your elevation as part of your measured movement. Love this kind of beautiful like waterfall we have over here, which is really pretty. Just kind of ways to sort of make the world feel a little bit more special and a little bit more immersive than just sort of static maps. Hopefully it's something that leaves your players feeling like they really are grounded within the world. I mentioned we have a lot of really beautiful maps. I'm particularly proud of them. If we look at the scenes directory under area maps, we've got all of these different biomes and locations just in Alpha 1, and Alpha 1 is only probably about 25 or 30% of our game. We've got all of these amazing maps for you to explore and discover. There's so many of them, even just in Alpha 1, and they're all spectacular, really. I'll probably show a few, I'll show some off a little later in the stream. I'm almost done with my little demo, and then I'll kind of talk about some other topics. So suppose we played out this event. Imagine you persevered and you defeated these pallid drakelings. As the GM, I can record in the journal, I can record that you discovered this creature. And so then once that's done in the codex, the players would see this creature entry. They wouldn't see the CR, but they would see the creature entry, the type, the artwork, the read aloud, so the players can kind of remember what they encountered and when. All right, so we mark this event as complete, and then from there the party would continue on to, you know, explore on their own. They face a choice at this point whether the party wants to go kind of north or south, and we expect the players to have a nice internal debate as they need to do some decision making. But it's interesting, like there's two different quests in Chapter 1 that the party could do depending on which way they go, and it is possible to do both of them, although you are on a little bit of a time rush because there's a special event happening in Helkas at a particular point in time 3 days from now, and so you need to kind of try and get to Helkas on time for the festival. So you probably don't have time to do both side quests, but you can go back and do the other side quest later if you want. Ember is largely an open world game, so there's sometimes a moment where urgency is necessary, but for the most part, you know, the party will choose what they want to do at any point in time. Now those two quests, Ooze Control, the green one to the south, and Over the Moon, this purple one to the north, as you can see, like depending on which way the party goes, they're likely going to experience, you know, one of those quests. And this is just the first example of like cases where not every party's experience with Ember is going to be the same. This happens again in Chapter 2, where you're going to be doing one of these three main quests, but not all three of them. And so different groups are all going to experience Ember differently. They're going to have different events happen, they're going to do things in different orders, They're going to make different choices. And so every group's story with Ember, we think, is going to be kind of unique to that group of players in a way that feels very true to TTRPGs, I think. I think that's kind of enough of me, like, explaining certain Ember systems. You can see these beautiful kaleidoscope caverns. That's a fun one. I'll show that off because it's really cool, the sorts of things we can do on the region map. So suppose we travel down this way. At some point we'll get interrupted because an event happens here, but I'm just going to mark it as complete real quick. I'll just fast forward. So we can enter these caverns. Now here we can see in from this location, we can see that there's caverns here, but if we back up, we would be outside of them, and so they have these kind of canopies. We can discover caves and go into the caves. It's a new biome. There's an event that happens here. I'll just fast forward through it. One thing that's particularly beautiful is these like glowing crystals. And of course, this biome, as well as others, all have area maps. So for example, in this event that just triggered on me, it takes us into the area map for the Kaleidoscope Caverns biome. And so you can see like a very beautiful sort of the luminous crystalline caverns of this particular area. As you're exploring the world, you're going to be drawn into moments like this where you'll need to kind of explore it at token level. Each biome map has multiple compositions, so there's a selector on the left side where we can switch, say, between like ooze pools versus crystal caverns, you know, no ooze pools versus pillar maze where there's more, you know, line of sight blockers in this particular version. There's the spider maze where we add in all of this horrible webbing for this like spider cave. There's the underground lake where there's a very large body of water in the corner. There's the arcane machine, and we'll be adding more options maybe in the future, but the reason we do that is because these biome maps, like, you're gonna have to use them multiple times, and so we want to make it so that, like, as your party's exploring the same area of the world for a while, they're not just seeing the exact same map every time. So having all these different like composition options that you can draw on is really important to just helping to keep it feel fresh for you. Vistas actually also have that. So you saw previously the vista for the verdant paths, or for example this vista of the dripstones. When we're in a vista like this, and here's some characters that you could meet in this vista, but I'm going to get rid of them for a minute. When you're in a vista like this one for the dripstones, there are other compositions that you could do. So instead of waterfall paths, you could be in the cliffside clearing, or you could be in the camp at the clearing if you're camping for the night, or the ooze pool, which is a location that we're getting close to right now. So the different composition options are really exciting, and one of the really exciting things about vistas is the builder. So if I go to the blank dripstones, here's kind of a blank canvas. I could open the Vista builder, and we need to continue improving the discoverability, like search or categories or something in this UI. It's a bit rudimentary at the moment, but there's so many assets that you can place into this vista. So suppose we want to start with some, like rock, like cliffs or something. I'll scroll down, stone cliffs. Maybe I'll kind of block off the area a little bit with like one in the foreground on the left, one in the midground on the right. We'll put some like stone pillars in here, kind of make it a sort of rocky environment. There's another bug. It's so funny. This like moats shader that you're seeing, it's like redrawing every time I place an asset, so we get like mega moats, like so many of these moats. Obviously that's not great. Hashtag Alpha One, still working on it, still working on a lot of stuff, but Yeah, maybe there's like a wrecked wagon in the middle of this vista, and like I want to tell a story about how you're encountering this other caravan that went through here and fell into trouble, and so I need some rocks to... Anyways, it's going to get very distracting with all of the like motes that are coming out every time I place something, so I won't subject you to too much more of this. That's obviously a bug that we need to fix with the mote spawning, but the process of like decorating these vistas is really fun and really satisfying. And then, once you're done with it, so many motes, you can look around and you can use the scene however you would need to. Sorry for subjecting you to the the mote frenzy. Killed my frame rate a little bit too. But yeah, we'll fix that bug. But the Vista builder itself is really spectacular, and it's so fun to just like put new different variations of scenes together yourself. It's a really fun thing that is possible. All right, let's talk about some other facets of Ember. I mean, I don't want to keep showing too much more of the story, so I think instead I'm just going to focus on like showing some different areas of the world. Of course, the Arctis Plateau is this very large environment that you can explore. It has many biomes, the canyons, the metropolis of Ordain. As you can see, the line art here is in, but the final color of the city of Ordain isn't done yet, but it will be. It's going to be absolutely beautiful and spectacular, and places like the city of Ordain, all of the places in our world have so many different ways to interact with them. So there's the region map itself with all of these hexes that you'll be able to travel to, and of course each of these hexes has in Ordain in particular, each of these hexes has like meaning to it, a particular district or borough that hex is. And then there's also vistas, like the Ordain overview vista, like looking at the city kind of overall at a distant level. So beautiful for just like surveying the skyline or having like the feeling of the city at your fingertips. And all of these vistas, all of our scenes, like I said, they're all integrated with calendar and time. So as we proceed into the evening, we get like Ordain nighttime. Automatically just like a very smooth sort of seamless transition into Ordain at night, like no scene change or anything. So like whenever you look at a view into our world, you're gonna get like, what is it like at this particular moment? And that's so satisfying, just to be able to, at like the flick of a button, be like, okay, we're here in the city again, and it's nighttime, and this moon is in the sky, but not this other one. Having those like automatic transitions with like all the window lights and stuff is all like really, really fun and very satisfying. Really love what we're doing with our vistas. Not just the biomes, not just the locations. We've got so many, and they're all really spectacular, just like our area maps as well. This is one that's new that I think y'all haven't seen yet. It's the Hallows. This is one of the signature meeting and social places in Ordain. It's kind of very much like an agora of sorts, where it's a very political center of the city, but it's also one for socialization and for trade. And so there's a lot of business and deals and negotiation and stuff that goes down in the Hallows. And just like Ordain, the Ordain overview, seamless transition to nighttime, night in the Hallows, very sort of bustling nightlife, really beautiful. And of course the soundscape, we haven't finished Ordain music yet, but the soundscape of the city is going to be really spectacular as well, as we're continuing to work on it. And as with any Vista, we can just drop any of the characters that we want to engage with directly into this Vista. So suppose our friend Juro here, Juro's a Wirran, a very tall Wirran at that. Suppose Juro is in the Hallows. Juro can be placed in this scene and can intermingle with the crowd and can move in and out and be kind of tucked in a merchant stall or wherever we want Juro to be. And we can have another one of our characters, like Svala here, of Rinhar, be present for you to go and talk with her. And so like the ability to kind of decorate these scenes with the characters that you need to meet and that you need to engage with is really something that just really brings like the theater of the screen to life and allows us to have these rich stories to tell of all of the different people that you might want to interact with. And so question from chat, how do you flip the characters in the Vista? I'm using Shift A and Shift D the same way that you would like rotate a token on an area map. Doing like keyboard token rotation in Vistas just flips the artwork back and forth, because sometimes they, look better facing a certain way than the other. Here's, of course, the Vista for Helkas. Switch away from this base composition, maybe to the festival view. This is, of course, where you were headed with the caravan. So our GCN playthrough cut out a little bit before Helkas and the festival, so we didn't really get to this. We got to it at the very, very end of the GCN playthrough. So, this is all stuff we've already shown, but like the moons here in the sky in the Dusktide Festival, it's a really beautiful scene. Everyone kind of being festive and revelry, at least until things take a bit of a dramatic turn, at which point things change. But yeah, eager to take some questions from chat, eager to show some different things. Oh, one thing I'd love to show, so much I can get into, of course, but maybe our dynamic tokens. Suppose I go to an area map like the Golden Flats. I think there's a scene here. Let's just advance to daytime. This is just sort of a basic biome map of sorts for one of our prominent biomes in the game. We'll just do road, empty road. I showed, of course, the token maker for player characters, and for your player character at any point, you can always reopen the token maker if you want to change your appearance at all. You can just pop it back open, you can change your character's appearance. But all of our humanoid, well, not all yet, but eventually that's the goal. Our humanoid adversaries in the game also get token maker treatment, which is something that I love. So for example, suppose we just have our basic Arcturian common folk. Suppose you want to tell a story at the spur of a moment about, your player characters meeting somebody on the road. So here's your character on the road, and we want to tell about, you meet someone. I can just grab some common folk and I can drop them in, and we get just automatically different ancestries, automatically different looks, all just like interesting sort of plausible characters that could exist in the world. At the drop of a button, you've just made like a whole traveling caravan of like interesting characters that just by looking at them you can imagine like I've got some sort of story I want to tell about this Nire or something. Also, not just common music has gotten loud again. Okay, let's see what I can do. Not just common folk, but like different sort of characters with stat blocks, like this CR2 Sindaric adherent. As we're placing Sindaric adherents around the map, they just automatically get randomized in a really, really satisfying way. Maybe I want some bad guys here. I want like these mutagists. So like different sort of factions of characters or different creature types, like they just get like subtly differentiated variations of themselves, so that when you're telling these stories, everyone just kind of looks great. Honestly, everyone looks great. Also, monstrous templates, also very exciting. So we've got some humanoid monsters like the Jurtak. Also kitted out with the token maker, Spore Bearer, Geomancer, hunter. We've got our band of marauding Jurtak adversaries here. We've got Horrendor, which are sort of like our Ember-specific kind of ghouls. I actually don't think this one is randomizing. It could be, so I think this is something that we just need to configure properly for randomization. But here you can see like we'd have like sort of different ghouls, different Horrendor. We have Scalith, our kind of skeletals. So with monster types where we can do the token maker, we can do really amazing kind of animated adversaries as well for you to do battle with, which is really satisfying. Adrian Parsons asks, I don't know how you toggle the names and status bars on and off. This is using the Alt key. So the Alt key highlights all of the tokens in the scene as well as any interactables. So yeah, using the Alt key to highlight all of them. Let's talk about interactables for a minute. That's a fun thing to focus on. So I'll pull up a map that has like a decent example of some interactables. Many of them do. We're adding more all the time, though. Let's do Vortest Tower. I love it. I think it's one that y'all haven't really seen much of yet. Here's a very specialized area of our game that you'll experience when doing a particular quest. It's a quite otherworldly landscape. I'll just leave it at that. But this particular location has interactables that I can use to demo how they work. So in this location, I think I'm gonna refresh real quick. I just want to make sure that the audio soundscape is fully caught up. There's a few little bugs with that and changing to the correct audio soundscape at a certain moment that I want to make sure is working properly. Anyways, here in this particular scene, there are interactables, these control orbs, here by these like force field gates, and by pressing the Alt key, it will show me on the map like where are those interactables that I can use. But then I can click on them, and when clicking on an interactable, what this one does is it controls like a linked set of force doors and like a force bridge. So I can activate this control orb, and it brings down the force fields, and it like activates this like force path between the towers that I can then of course traverse now that the door is down. So like interactable objects like that, we have a lot of them in many of our scenes that allow the players or the GM to like interact with some element of the world and like make the process of exploring the maps like more, you know, more immersive and more active. So I can close this. I can actually lock. I can lock the door as well. I can lock the orb. As the GM, then the players wouldn't be able to use it. Yeah, so it's an awesome example of interactables. Another really cool one, of course, which you've seen a lot of, is like the mirror puzzle in the Bleak Archive. It's one of our big dungeons that's in Alpha One. Yeah, so let's see here. Activating this mirror puzzle. The sort of rotating light beams puzzle. We've shown this a couple of times, so I won't spend a lot of time here, but this is another example of like interactable objects in the scene, these mirrors that you can use to kind of have your players try and solve the light beam puzzle as they explore this particular dungeon. There's also like levers they can pull, like that, you know, drop sections of the wall so they can proceed, or a lever over here that pulling it like opens this like secret door. Yeah, so interactables is something that we sprinkle around a lot of our dungeons. Another fun one that I can show is the signal post. Honestly, like all of our dungeons basically have, or almost all of them have some sort of interactable. I can showcase a trap here. Let's see. Oh, doors. Yeah, that's another thing. I mean, that's a new core feature, but the animated doors, that's something that we initially pioneered in Ember. So as a GM, I'm seeing this trap, but the players wouldn't see that. So as a player character is coming into this dungeon and they walk into the trap. Oh, you know what? I might not have... Didn't go, so I might have had it disarmed. Let's see. Yeah, it was off. Oops. So as we go into this trap, as long as the trap is on, it triggers the pressure plate, game is paused. The reason I can't see anymore is because this was a darkness trap, and so when we stepped into the trap, it caused this sphere of darkness to emerge. So it's taking away all of my vision. I don't know what I'm seeing right now. So this big pressure plate is a darkness trap in particular. But if the players kind of fumble their way through the darkness and get to the far side of it, I need a light source. That'll make it easier to show. Say I light up a torch or something. The players can find a lever, for example, that like controls the trap. That's another interactable object. They're really in a lot of our scenes, a lot of interactables. So like this lever can like disable the darkness trap or re-enable it. And you can actually see the lever moving, which is kind of cool. It's like a little flip, little texture flip. That's fun. Another thing, like the elevator. This is like a rotating elevator lock. So if I step into this rotating elevator, I can rotate it like... Oh, interesting. I think I just found an Alpha One bug. Whoops. What happened there? It took me to a different level. Huh. Hashtag Alpha One. We've still got plenty of work to do with testing and refining some of these things, of course. Hopefully, those of you who are participating in our alpha playtest will treat that as expected. Yeah, it took me down to the basement. That was not supposed to be the case, so that is a little bit of a bug. Let's ride the elevator back to our prior level. Oh well, I might not be able to show this one. There might be something I need to do to figure out why it's not working properly. I thought I was going to be so cool and showcase our rotating elevator lock. You can see a little bit of like what's supposed to happen here as you like turn the elevator lock around. You get like access to a different quadrant of the dungeon, and it's cool because your like token moves with the elevator. But anyways, you get the idea. There's a little bit of bugginess here though that I need to work out. I'm not sure exactly what was happening there. Won't try and debug it further live on stream. Such is the path of pain. Let's see. Here's a beautiful new map that you guys have not had a chance to see yet. This is Arcturel Lower, one of our sort of settlement areas that is also part dungeon. It's a sort of mining town, and this is the lower part of the lower reaches of the mining town where you would ride take the elevator down and interact with characters in these little shops or things, or the stables, or the sinkhole far below you in the distance. You get a sense of like kind of how some of the like parallax effects work in our maps. You can see as I'm panning around, there's this really appealing kind of parallax that helps sell the sense of depth in the environment. And then, of course, like the dungeon side of this town as well. The mine is a sort of built-in dungeon experience for you to adventure in. Anyways, we have many beautiful scenes in the world for you to explore. I think I've been rambling for a while. There's so much more that Ember can do. I'm not sure. I've probably forgotten something major that I really should have talked about, but I think this is probably a pretty good overview for the most part. So if any of you have questions, I'm happy to take some questions and talk about things. But I've shown a little bit of everything. I think I haven't talked too much about the setting compendium, which of course is a huge resource for game masters and players alike. Every page in the setting compendium, or many pages in the setting compendium, have both player information as well as game master information. So the GM information about these topics is only visible to GMs on these setting compendium pages. So there is kind of like a two-tiered information structure about every lore topic in our setting compendium. So in cases where the GM needs to, and many of these pages are not, fully written yet, but in cases where the GM needs to know more in order to faithfully run the game, there's a lot of depth that you can get into in these setting compendium pages. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate it. Question from Dragonite. I know there's some random event stuff. Is the GM able to prep for that ahead of time? Yes and no. At some point, as our event system gets more and more heavily populated, it's like there's going to be maybe too many events for you to really be thoroughly prepped for every eventuality of what might happen. However, there is in the overlay here up at the top right of the screen, there is like an event details HUD that shows you for any particular hex, like what are the probabilities of events that would happen there. Now, right now at this stage in the game, that HUD element is quite sparse. Like basically most of these hexes is either like nothing happens or for sure something happens, because at this moment in Alpha 1, two things. One, these are quest events that like absolutely happen when you reach a certain place, like the quest event is guaranteed to happen. And then two, we have random standalone events turned off right now to make this stage of alpha testing easier for us to manage. And so where there would be like, here's a bunch of like little random one-off events that could happen in this biome or could happen at this location, that will eventually exist. And so, just sort of random generic wilderness hex here might have 4 or 5 things that could possibly happen when you get to it. But this little HUD element will tell the GM like what is possible to occur in a particular hex, so that you can like have some ability to anticipate. But of course, like ultimately, if there's a lot of low probability random events, it's not really worth your time to prep them. And so I think it's more incumbent on us as writers to make sure that if we have like low probability random events, they're not the kinds of things that you need to prep for. Like they should be written in ways that like, this event will not cause you any trouble as the GM if you haven't prepared for it. Like you're going to be fine. It's the bigger stuff like quest events where maybe you want to be a little bit more prepared for how you would play those. And that's why for those quest events, you can see, you can see on the region map, like where those events are going to occur. And so that's really like, if you were going to prep something, I would say prepare the quests. Don't worry about preparing standalone events. I think it's our job as designers to make sure that the content of standalone events isn't going to make you feel unprepared. Question from Adrian Parsons. When do you think the Crucible Ember will be available for its own sneak peek? I think at the earliest it'll be like 3 months from now. At the latest, it could be 6 months from now. I would like for Crucible to be playable Chapter 1. So right now, D&D is playable Chapters 1 and 2. Chapter 2 actually isn't entirely complete yet. We're missing a little bit of quest content that still needs to be added. But basically, Ember is all of Chapters 1 and 2 right now for D&D. Crucible Chapter 1 is what my first focus will be with Crucible, and I think it's going to be a couple of months because we have a lot to do across the board, but that's kind of what I'm anticipating. And then Crucible will continue to sort of lag behind D&D in terms of whatever content has been completed for D&D. That content should be hopefully available for Crucible like 6 months later, something like that. I don't want to commit to dates though, because honestly, like, I don't know for sure how challenging this process will be. And I think based on that uncertainty, if anything, it's probably likely to be longer than less long, just because I don't know what I don't know yet. Rogue Entity asks, you appear to be playing in a fairly high resolution. Has it been designed to look good at lower resolutions as well? Will windows be renderable without taking too much real estate? So Ember lists as a system requirement a 1920 by 1080 monitor. We don't try and support resolutions below 1920 by 1080. That is the minimum that we make any effort to support. But we do make a significant effort to treat 1920 by 1080 as our default standard resolution. So that's kind of like what we target to make things look good. Let's see, other questions. What books will be needed to run Ember, and what ones would be recommended but not needed? I think that, honestly, I would like to say that no book is required. I think the D&D Player's Handbook is probably the closest thing that I would say, and it's kind of maybe at the borderline between required and recommended. I think at some point, like, you need to kind of know the rules of D&D, but the rules of D&D don't necessarily require the Player's Handbook. Like, there is the SRD rules in the system itself. You know, the rules of D&D are here in the SRD, and so, you know, whether you need the Player's Handbook or not, I think, you know, up to you. I think it's helpful to have, though. It's a good reference. Crucible won't have any physical books, so all of the Crucible rules will be built in the system. Yeah. A question from Darksteel Spork. Can the GM easily distinguish which information is hidden from players in the journal? Yeah, it is quite easy to distinguish because it is... I'll find one that has an example of it. Obviously, this is all very, like, work in progress, and so not everything has a GM info only section. Probably deities is a good... Yeah, like Elar. The GM stuff is specifically under this Game Master information header. This is not, like, Game Master information like this isn't a heading that one of our writers wrote. Like, this is a... It's always Game Master information is the header of this section. So, like, this is what will make it clear that everything below this line is for GMs only. Question from Josiah Dogoldrin. Sorry, I probably butchered your name. Is there going to be a land management system? Not at this time. Not a land management system. There will be, later in Ember, a stronghold system, though, where you can acquire a home base. It will be a home base in the city of Ordain or near the city of Ordain, which is upgradable. So it becomes your kind of bastion, your kind of home fort for your party. And it's not really land management, though, because it's only in one location. Yeah. I'm going to record some discover... Oh, I didn't show the pathways at all. That's definitely something I should do. I'm just going to record some discoveries of locations in the journal so that you can see some of the beautiful, like, POIs on the region map. Little spoilers, of course, but suppose you've discovered all of these places. We got all these, like, beautiful little, like, POI artworks. Steed's Point here, and Vortex Tower, and Seawall, and... Huh, where's Arcturel? Interesting. I wonder if that's a Alpha One bug. Gazetteer, Arctis Plateau Gazetteer, Arcturel. Oh, I see. Yeah, I see. That is a bug, actually. It should show up in the codex, but yeah, let's discover Arcturel. So you see how it kind of pops in when we discover the POI. That's the same that would appear if the party went to that hex with their token. It would pop in like that. Like Oldcraft Lodge. Whoop. The shadows is another really fun thing on the region map. If you look at, like... It's a nice little touch, but it's subtle, and I love it. Like, if you look at, like, this windmill, or Oldcraft Lodge here, or this little tower here, as the time of day progresses, you see, like, they're, like, cast shadows kind of, like, moving across the land. It's just, like, a little way that we kind of, like, depict the passage of time in the region map. It's a nice little touch that I really like. All right, let's see. A few more questions. Adrian Parsons, if you have Ember, will the Ember races, we call them ancestries, but be available in non-Ember Crucible games? Yeah, so I don't know. I'm not sure. That's something I have to decide. Whether the Ember ancestries will become like Crucible ancestries, or whether they'll just be Ember ancestries when you're playing Ember plus Crucible together. I think it's probably going to be the latter one. I don't really want to like steal them, but maybe, I don't know. Maybe a reduced form of those ancestries might be sort of stock to the Crucible system potentially. I don't know. Mr. Potato Z, when do I get to unleash the Baradom on your poor tier 1 PCs? Yeah, the encounter that uses the Baradom, little spoiler alert for folks, but again, everything here is a little bit spoilers. But yeah, down in the Mycelian Expanse, you'll find a Baradom. This is a pathways area. You'll find a Baradom that is like being attacked, and the Baradom is not necessarily your enemy directly. It's the things that are attacking the Baradom that are the source of the problem. And so you don't, the lower level characters don't fight the Baradom, but they kind of fight around the Baradom in this event, so to speak. Speaking of the pathways, let's take a look at that. That's obviously a major feature of Ember that I didn't show yet. Now I have some light sources here just to like make it easier to see them, but they really shouldn't be there, so I'll show you what it looks like without them. Oh, here's another key thing. So I can teleport the party token. So suppose I teleport the party token. There's a little tool, this portal icon, that is Ember specific. You can use it as the GM to really quickly, like, I want to teleport the party to Arcturel, so then we just whoosh over here to Arcturel. Can be really convenient for the GM in testing things out, or you can teleport to a specific location, or you can teleport to just any hex in the world by providing its hex coordinate. So suppose we're here in Arcturel on the surface. We can traverse down to the pathways by lowering our elevation by 1, and that takes us down to the pathways underground section that is beneath Arcturel. So now we're here in the sinkhole depths beneath Arcturel. We've traveled down. We can, discover the biome. We can discover some locations down here, traverse the spooky underground underworld of the pathways. This section below Arcturel is a sort of smaller section of the pathways, but it is still a significant one. And yeah, so we get kind of both the above ground and the below ground experience of the world. And then without moving your token down to the pathways, you can just click the cycle elevation button to preview what else is down there. And I'll bring a big light source back just so y'all can see. But yeah, we've got all these underground biomes as well, like the Mycelian expanse over here, the lake underneath the canyons, the fog-bound caverns over here, spooky, evil. Yeah, of course, the sinkhole depths. And there's going to be more pathways areas as well to explore. This is not the end of it as we continue developing Ember. So the whole underworld aspect, the underground aspect of the pathways is really exciting, and it just gives a different flavor, a different taste of adventure that can happen in our game. We've got lots of great pathways areas to explore as well in vistas and in area maps. So for example, vistas, we can see the Mycelian expanse Vista that has different compositions to it. Like this is a particular composition where a gameplay event is occurring, but we've also got many other compositions in the pathways that in this particular biome that different flavors. And of course, using the Vista builder, you'll be able to kind of create your own as well for all of these biomes using these wonderful assets. All right, back to a couple more questions, and then I think I'm going to wrap up for the day. I'm going to scroll down to end of current chat. See if I can take a few more questions before I wrap up. Question, will teleport be part of V13 for other systems? I hadn't planned it to be because it sort of relies on Ember-specific metadata, like these locations. Ember has the specialized region metadata to know like where could you teleport to. Of course, in non-Ember, every grid space has an offset coordinate, but those offset coordinates for a hex, like 14315, they're not really discoverable in the core UI, so I'm not sure how we would do that. I think like there's just like a lot of Ember specific things that go into, oh, let's have a teleportation UI. It's like everything here is to a degree kind of Ember specific. Question from K-Random. About progression early on, you mentioned that we could go back and do the other quest in the prologue area. Would that lead to a higher party level, or is that on a fixed milestone basis? It would. Yeah, so what will happen, generally speaking, is that the party will reach Helkas and be level 2. After doing, one of the side quests, they'll reach level 2. And so they'll be level 2 at Helkas. They'll be actually level 2 in a bit, because they'll have gotten their 4th milestone point in the process of finishing the Chapter 1 main quest. So generally at the end of Chapter 1, the party will be like 1 milestone point away from level 3. And so either that party will like get to level 3 by like continuing their adventure off into the Golden Flats and like finding some quest to do, to the east in this biome, or suppose they did the quest up here, you know, they could backtrack and do the southern quest down here and get to level 3 by doing that other, you know, that other quest in this starting area. It's not required that they do that. I mean, I think it's just one of the options that they have when they're departing Helcas is, do they want to go back or do they want to push on? Question from Captain Cuddlebuns. If we're playing the alpha, will characters transfer up to alpha 2, beta, etc.? That's our plan. I don't want anyone's game world or game state to break or get force reset. I think we have a good enough data structure underlying what we're doing in Ember that, like, from here on out, we should be able to provide any sort of migration that we need to, so that your Alpha 1 stuff will carry on in Alpha 2. That being said, it is Alpha, though, and so, like, if we discover that there's something that we can only do by breaking your character or by breaking your game, we will ultimately do that thing. It is Alpha, and if we have to, we will use the nuclear option, because, like, we need to build Ember the right way, and I don't want us to be too caught on, like, well, we can't do it the right way because people have been testing. But I don't expect that to happen. I think we're in a really solid foundation where everything will be able to carry forward. All right, let's see. I think I've reached the end of questions for now. I hope you've all enjoyed this look into what Ember has to offer. Oh, here's a random, sort of semi-random event that could happen while we're out in the wilderness. That's nice. I'll just mark this one as complete. Not going to play it out, but it's nice. Any parting shots? Anything that anyone's been, you know, dying to know about? I feel like the area map interactables were a pretty big hit. I'll show a few more of those. Here's some cool ones in Steed's Point. Like there's a... Yeah, there's like a growing vines trap that like comes out of the ground, or like these like vine walls that can like kind of recede or pull back. This bridge that like collapses if like too much weight is put on it. So like just little elements like where we don't have to use a macro or something, like it's just we can kind of integrate that behavior directly into the map so that the GM's not like fumbling around trying to find the right macro or something at the right moment. It's right there on the map for you to click, and it's just like a lot nicer of an experience for this sort of thing. Here's Seawall. It's another beautiful location to visit. Seawall is the largest city outside of Ordain in our space. Ordain is a metropolis, so Ordain is massive, but Seawall is the sort of second largest city in our game. And here's a vista of the docks in Seawall, and then the companion map, of course, would be the area map of the alleyways here, where you can kind of have a token level experience of exploring Seawall and getting up to trouble in the docks and boarding your ship and chartering passage to lands far beyond. We've got the ship too, of course, so like once you're on the ship and you're out at sea, you might be... Oh, I've got a sort of boarding action combat in the middle of happening right here, but yeah, we've got to repel some raiders, but the ship is kind of a fun thing to use as a segue between ports. in the world. There's not much of the seafaring side of it in yet, but outside of, you can't see it because of the alpha mask, but there's quite a bit of ocean, and there'll be islands and things to explore in the ocean, and so plenty of that yet to come. Voodoo Frog, we're not. We are partnered with Forgotten Adventures to the extent that we have a close relationship with them, and we have a licensing agreement with them for using their assets to make these wonderful maps. But we are making the maps. Their team is busy making their own fabulous maps for gameplay locations and for adventures and whatnot. So it's not FA making the maps directly, but we work closely with them, and we use their asset library as an essential part of our map making process. We have 4 or 5 different cartographers on the team, and some of them use Photoshop and some of them use Clip Studio, depending on personal preference. Another cool pathways location. Love it. All right, I think I'm going to wrap up, but thank you all very much for joining on this adventure and for being interested in Ember and interested in what we're doing. Really appreciate your support and your interest. It's really meaningful to our team, and I know I have, and other members on the team have already said, like, how rejuvenating and replenishing it is to see all of the, like, really positive remarks about, how you're liking what we've made in Ember and how you're reacting to it. And, it's really great to be able to kind of embrace the process of making it a little bit more publicly, and it's really encouraging getting that feedback from you all, so thank you very much. I would like to reward those of you who stayed this long by giving one of you access to Alpha. So if you stuck with me for the entire stream, I'm going to do a quick giveaway as I wrap up the stream. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop over to Twitch, and I'm going to snag the viewer list, and I'm going to do a quick roll off and try and find a winner. For to get one of you into the alpha test with us. So if you'll just bear with me for a moment while I set that up. I'm imagining there's a few people who are AFK at the moment, so I expect we may have to roll a couple of times to get a winner who is present, or who doesn't already have it, because I think either folks will be AFK or maybe already in alpha, but if you are already in alpha, I'm fine for you to be a winner. You can accept the winning, and I will be happy to give it to a friend of yours if there's someone else that you would like to get in. So just bear with me a moment, please. let's do it. I'm gonna make it to where it does text. Okay, I've got my table here of the trusty 1D 157, and I will give it a roll, and we're gonna see if we can get a winner on the table. How did I make a roll table so quickly? I have a macro that takes a list of names and it makes a roll table out of it. Yeah. All right, y'all. I wish you luck. Let's try and see if we can get a winner for Alpha Access of Ember, and the winner is Josiel Dogoldrin. Josie L. Dogoldrin. I think they might have asked a question during the stream. I don't know, Josie, if you're here. You are the winner. Let's see. If you're here, please say something in chat to acknowledge that you would accept an alpha access for yourself or for a friend. All right, going once. Going twice. Tough luck. Time's up. Time's up. Let's get another winner. All right, another winner. Teseu Augustus. Teseu Augustus. If you're here, you are a winner of Ember Alpha Access, if you would accept it for yourself or for a friend. Nice. I see a nice from Teseu Augustus. All right, awesome. What you'll need to do is please send me a DM on Twitch with so that we can get in touch, and then I'll get your Foundry VTT account set up with access to Ember, so you can give it a try. I think I'll pull one more. I'll pull one more winner. You all have been a very nice audience today. I'm willing to go to get 2 of these sent out. So let's give you all one more shot at the wheel. We'll see if we can get one more in here. Diarch Mist. Diarch Mist. If you're here, you are also a winner. Diarch Mist. Yes. Yes. All right, good. We got two present winners. That's awesome. So Diarch Mist, what you also can do is send me a DM on Twitch and just get connected, and I'll get your Foundry VTT account set up with access to test Ember Alpha, all the stuff you've been seeing here. I hope you're excited to give that a shot, and we would love to hear any feedback that you have. All right, well, that's it, folks. I'll be doing more Ember streams, of course, as we continue developing. We're going to be adding new stuff all the time, so there's always going to be new things to see and to do, both with Ember, with Crucible, with Core. You know, V13 is getting closer to stable, and then we'll be working on V14, and it's a whole thing. We're always moving forward. So thank you all for being part of that journey with us. We really appreciate your support and enthusiasm. It was a really big week for us in Foundry Land. We had a V13 release. We had the official marketplace that is now live and running. Huge amount of work's gone into that. We had a new D&D system release, 4.3.0. Huge amount of work went into that in support of the monster manual that's coming out next week. Ember Alpha One dropped this week. We were so busy these last couple weeks getting all of those milestones that just happened to kind of like come in at the same point. So I'm ready to take a, I hope, deserved break the rest of the weekend. I'm going to go clock out and relax. And so I'll see you all online, see you in Discord. Thanks for watching. Cheers, farewell, happy gaming. See you next time.